Amen Thompson is currently my favorite young player in the NBA to watch. He's such a unique player compared to his peers, and he doesn't really fit the box that most guard wings in the modern NBA do. But he also has things that allow him to play outside of that box and break conventions of his positions. And I believe Amen Thompson is one of the 2 or 3 highest upside young players in the NBA. And in this video, I want to talk about what makes him so special, as well as his upside as a player. But before we go any further, if you're new and like basketball, I'd really appreciate if you would like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to be notified whenever I release a video. If you enjoy basketball, I really think you're going to enjoy my content, and doing all of those things are the best way to let YouTube, but more importantly, myself know that you enjoy the content so I can make more of it in the future. Anyways, let's talk about Amen Thompson. Amen Thompson is the best pure athlete in the NBA in my opinion. I've compared it to anime characters like Akame from Akame Ga Kill, or basically any character from Ruby. I know it's technically not an anime, but still. But the reason being is that he has this rare combination of speed, quickness, and power that's anywhere from the 99th to 100th percentile compared to his peers. At 6'7", 215 pounds with a 7-foot wingspan, he has the ideal size that allows him to play both in the backcourt and frontcourt, but he also checks off, again, basically every athletic box you could ask of him with flying colors. He's an elite vertical athlete in every aspect. He's explosive leaping off the ground and has incredible second jump. I would argue the best second jump in the NBA. His vertical range is unheard of. The way he hangs in the air simply doesn't make sense and doesn't seem possible based off basic science. He's absurdly quick and twitchy. He can accelerate 0 to 60 on a dime and can decelerate on a dime as well. He's insanely fast with and without the basketball in his hands. I'd say he's one of the 5 fastest players in the NBA. He has great body control and flexibility, and he's decently strong as well. I think among the strengths of his athleticism, I would put the strength at the bottom, but it's not like he's bad in that area. There aren't many, if any, athletes that combine what can be described as this many, at least close to, but I would argue flat out, generational athletic traits. And this allows a man to do things that most players can't. It maximizes the strengths of his game, and it also makes up for some of the deficiencies in his game. Amen shows a ton of promise as an off-ball scorer. He can be a cutter, he can be a roll man, he can run transition, and the fact that he's basically a 100th percentile athlete makes him very dangerous in this regard. It makes him one of the most valuable young players in the NBA when it comes to roster construction, because he doesn't need the basketball in his hands to be effective on offense. It allows teams to be more open about other young talent they plan to acquire and add to a rebuild. I think Amen could be a very good player just off-ball scoring combined with his defense and passing. While I think the upside is much higher than just being an off-ball player, the fact that he is a very effective player off the ball does give him a high floor. I never agreed with the idea that he or his twin were low floor players just because they couldn't shoot, especially when both of them have shown they can be effective off the ball. He checks off almost every box you want from a field perspective off the ball. He's definitive on his rolls, he times his cuts well, he can outrun defenses on the fast break. But when you combine the mental tools with the physical and athletic tools he has, you get potentially one of the most dangerous off-ball scorers in the NBA, even if he's not a good shooter. However, that isn't to say he doesn't have on-ball upside. Amen has been a promising rim pressure threat this season, shooting 71.9% on 3.8 attempts per game. What's most promising is that it's a near 50-50 split between his assisted and unassisted production at the rim, which I think shows the capability of what it can do in terms of his versatility. He can do off-ball stuff we talked about earlier, but he can also do things on the ball. Now, the handle can get better, but he's also the level of athlete where it can compensate for a developing handle. We've seen this with guys like Jaylen Brown. He's nearly impossible to contain 1v1 because he's just that freakish of an athlete. The list of players that can match up with him 1v1 athletically can be counted on one hand, and one of those players is his twin brother, who's also a freak athlete. He can blow by defenders, he's physical enough to draw contact, his free throw numbers have gone up from 2.5 to 3.9 per game this season, which may not seem like much, but for someone averaging 25 minutes per game in the role he plays on this Houston Rockets team, that is very encouraging. He can find angles that others can't because he has the body control and flexibility, combined with an ability to get to spots before defenders can. And this is an area that will only get better as his role expands and how he also potentially develops with his handle. And I think at his best, he can be at the Ja Morant or say Gilgeous-Alexander levels of rim pressure. In fact, I'll take it a step further. I think the best possible outcome is that he is the best rim pressure threat among guards and wings in the NBA. The traits and efficiency on tape just are too good to at least not consider it in my opinion. The in-between scoring is an area where a man kind of breaks the rules. There have been improvements. 41.9% on 2.1 non-rim 2-point attempts per game this season, which is up from 35.8% on 1.3 attempts per game as a rookie. Still not good numbers, but promising improvement in my opinion when you look at the fact that the efficiency has gone up and the volume has gone up. He has flashed some semblance of a growing mid-range game and a growing floater game, but where he breaks the rules is that he can kind of just jump from floater range and finish at the rim. He can do things from range that others can't. He can expand his strengths to areas of the court that others can't because he has unmatched vertical range and hang time. Now, do I want him to develop an actual floater and mid-range shot? I think that if he's going to reach his full potential, he will need to develop those things. I think if he wants to reach the dominant inside the arc scoring heights, I think he can. He will need to develop some of those things the same way guys like Ja Morant, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, LaMelo Ball, and Tyrese Maxey have. At the same time, does he have the athleticism that's an absolute cheat code that gives him finishing range and does things that others won't even be able to dream of? Yes, he also has that. This is another reason I believe a man has such a high floor. His athleticism is hard to match and hold back because 99.9% of the league can't match it. It gives him a natural advantage while also making him effective even as he develops the areas of the game he needs to improve on. The numbers may not show it, but a man, in my opinion, has one of the highest ceilings in the NBA as a playmaker. He checks off all the intangibles, the vision is incredible, he makes good reads, he can make plays on the ball, off the ball as a connector, and in transition. I think his numbers more reflect the role he plays rather than his ability. I think if they asked him to do more as a playmaker, he would have better assist per game numbers. I think if they played him at point guard right now, like straight up, he could be a 5+ assist per game player. But what makes him so special is how he combines his athleticism with the playmaking tools. If you watched my Ja Morant video, link in the description and pinned comment, feel free to check that out after you watch this video. You probably remember me talking about Ja's athleticism and processing speed, allowing him to do things as a playmaker that others simply can't. And you also probably heard me mention Amen as one of the few players that I think has the upside to do something similar. Well, I'm going to expand on that here. Like how Amen's athletic ability allows him to do things from non-rim 2-point range and as a rim finisher that others can't, he can apply playmaking tools and athleticism in the same way. He can find guys open because he moves so fast that defenses are out of rotation. He can make reads ahead of defenses because of the fact that he can beat them to spots. He can process the game at absurd speeds, and it is somewhat similar to Ja Morant. Now, he's not perfect. I think the handle could use work before we put him in this Ja Morant category of playmaking. While a man has the athleticism to compensate for a developing handle right now, long term, if he wants to reach the playmaking heights his intangibles suggest he can, he will need to improve his handle. He has flashes of improvement and upside in this area, but this is a swing factor. However, like with his other skills, the theme is the high floor in his abilities. The handle improving isn't going to dictate if he's a good playmaker or not. It's going to be the swing factor between him being like a super connective playmaker or a legit primary playmaker. Now, we do have to address the shooting with a man. He's bad, no way around it. The form isn't good really at all. The numbers aren't good either. But I'm not as worried about this because I don't think he needs to be a good shooter to be a great player. I think his athleticism is just that absurd to the point it can make up for a lack of shooting ability. Sagging off rim just gives him a runway to use his athletic tools. Packing the paint just gives him room to find open shooters. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, look at what happened to Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons was all NBA good at his best, and he didn't fall off because of his inability to shoot the basketball alone. It was injuries and a lack of aggressive mindset, among other things, that led to his fall off. Those are things that can't be projected with men without it being in bad faith, and I'm not going to do that. Ben Simmons, even without the jumper, at his best was a top 20 to 25 player in the NBA, and it wasn't the fact that he couldn't shoot that led to him falling off. It was other things. And I don't think a man lacks aggression as a player. I think developing his handle is way more important than developing his jumper, because it will expand what he can do as a player and fully maximize the generational athletic tools he has. Now, with that being said, he's not a complete lost cause as a shooter, even if it doesn't look good at all right now. He's not an unwilling shooter. He's made some growth in his free throw numbers. I don't think he'll ever be a great shooter, but I think it's possible to see him develop into a Ja Morant level shooter that's good enough to punish defenses when they go under from time to time. Even if you never classify him as a good shooter, or you want him to shoot rather than you want him to drive. Regardless, I don't think a man needs to be some good shooter to be a starter. If he becomes a league average shooter though, he will be a superstar. And if he has outlier development and becomes a great shooter, he's going to be the most unguardable non-big forward in the NBA. The other area a man can be great though is his defense. The stats back this up. He was in the 97th percentile for defensive estimator plus minus last season. This season he's in the 99th percentile in that regard. He has all the physical and athletic tools to match up with 1s through 4s. High motor, good instincts and feel. He's active on and off the ball. And he has an ability to be just as impactful as he is productive. He has great hands in the passing lanes. He's a very good shot blocker for a non-big. He can be a stocks monster, just like his brother Asar is, just like how many can't match his athleticism on offense. The same applies to his defense. He can play at the point of attack. You can put him on opposing teams' best perimeter players. He can also play off the ball. He can be disruptive. He can handle switches onto multiple positions. He has unreal recovery time as a defender. He still has things he needs to clean up defensively, like any young player does. But he's clearly a positive impact player on defense right now and has potential to be even more than that. Amen Thompson breaks all the rules. The athleticism you just can't teach does allow him to do that. His finishing range is different from a majority of the league. His playmaking range is different from a majority of the league. His path to stardom is different from what most consider the quote-unquote standard for guards or wings in the NBA. The floor is very high with him. At the very least, he's a versatile defender and can make an impact on offense as a connector in transition. I didn't even talk about his rebounding in this video, but he's great in that area as well. But I think if he continues to develop his handle, continues to improve on the in-between stuff, and the playmaking role expands, he's going to be a star. He's going to be someone that's the engine of your offense. Because if he reaches his full potential in those areas, he will be dominant in what I believe is the most important element of an offensive engine, which is rim pressure. He has potential to be a 6'7", 215-pound freak athlete that's one of the most dominant guard wing rim pressure threats, an elite playmaker that's also one of the most versatile in the league, and an elite defensive player. That's an all-NBA level guy, and I haven't even mentioned the jumper. Because he's so athletically dominant, he doesn't need a jumper to be great in my opinion. Of course, this is all contingent on the other areas, like his handle, the floater, and even his finishing getting better, which he has some flashes of. But if he does become a good shooter, that doesn't mean he'll go from an average player to a good one. I think that expands what he is as a player from a great one to a potentially top percentile one. I have no doubts that Amen is going to be a good player in the NBA. He has too many things you just can't teach. But if he somehow becomes a great shooter, it will only raise his already incredible ceiling, and the potential, if we talk about some outlier shooting development, that's not talking about he's going to be a great player. That's talking about him potentially being one of the 2 or 3 best players in the NBA one day. But regardless, only time will tell, and I can't wait to see how he develops over the next few years. But that's the end of this video. If you made it to this point, thank you so much. Again, haven't already, like, subscribe, hit notification bell, notify whenever I release a video. I make videos about basketball, and I think if you enjoy basketball, you're going to enjoy my content. And doing all those things are the best way to let YouTube, but more importantly myself, know that you enjoy the content so I can make more of it in the future. Let me know what you think about Amen Thompson. How have you been viewing his first 2 years in the NBA? What do you think his upside as a player is? Where does he rank among the best young guards and wings or overall young players in the NBA? I'd love to hear all of that in the comment section below. But with that being said, have a nice day, and I'll see you guys in the next one.